everyone. Today we're holding a press conference. Obviously, as everyone well knows, we are withholding bonding for capital projects in this county. Capital projects in a $500 million capital plan, or amount of money we spend on capital projects throughout the year, is 90% of the contracts come through the capital plan. Talking about contracts well in excess of what's being supposed today in regards to $25,000 or less. Talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of contracts that come through this legislature. And we cannot in good conscience, and we will re-emphasize today again, we cannot in good conscience vote for a capital plan without the proper procurement in place. The county district attorney said it best, that the county is susceptible and a recipe for corruption without the proper procurement process. What we are striving for is an independent inspector general. That is very different than the roles of the county attorney in his role of commissioner of accounts and what he believes being a procurement director or inspector general. What we are fighting for is an independent inspector general. One that will be able to have no ties to any of the parties in this county and be able to review contracts subjectively, objectively, to be able to determine whether or not there's waste, fraud, and abuse, which we clearly have seen now in the last year since ABTEC. Over 300 plus days, we have not received the proper reform to be in place, and again, we continue to see contracts come through this county. We cannot, in good conscience, allow $275 million in borrowing to go through this plan when there is no procurement and no protection for the taxpayer. The Republicans do not see anything wrong with the process, though any of the measures that they proposed would not prevent an ABTEC from happening. Any of the proposals that they proposed didn't even stop a blue chip from happening. So from our standpoint, we can no longer tolerate or accept a lack of an independent inspector general. And the real question for them, my colleagues in the legislature that are not here with me today, the real question for them is, what's so wrong with an independent inspector general? Explain to the public, the taxpayer, why an independent set of eyes is wrong for this county in terms of how we go forward. And with that being said, I'd like to open it up to any particular questions.
If right now the threshold is $1,000 for legislative approval, they're saying that should be enough. You know, if it's going to the legislature, then, you know, why have an inspector general, I guess is what they're saying. So what would you say to that?
Well, every contract in excess of $25,000 is coming to the legislature. We see those contracts. The problem that occurs is these contracts appear. We have no idea of whether or not these contracts have been vetted properly through the RFP process. Who was on that RFP committee? We have no idea if this money is being, if there's contributions being made in terms of this money. We have no idea. These are all things that we've seen now in the last year, where this county does not have the protection it needs to ensure taxpayers can ensure that their money is being spent wisely. So removing that measure, yes, it covers the contracts $25,000 or less. But it doesn't, what about the contracts that are $25,000 or less, which are much, much greater in stature? None of the measures that the Republicans have proposed would prevent ABTEC from happening, not one of them. And the bottom line is that was a $12 million contract. We already had the ability to approve that contract in the legislature. How did that happen? That's the question that they're not answering. They're not answering that, how do they prevent ABTEC from happening? This measure for $25,000, that's peanuts in comparison to what the ABTEC contract is for. We need a mechanism that's going to be in place that is going to make sure that Nassau County taxpayer dollars are going to be protected. Independent inspector general. Who in their right mind in this country would fight for transparency and independence in regards to this process? I fail to understand their position on this particular issue.
Kavan outside just now, the presiding officer said this position is explicitly jeopardizing public safety. They talk about vests, they talk about ADA ramps. What say you on public safety in general?
We've supported capital plans in the past. I think some of my colleagues here, like Legislator Jacobs, have supported capital plans all her career. That being said, we understand the importance of the capital plan. We understand what it funds. But we also understand at this point and at this juncture that Nassau County has no transparency. It is open and susceptible to corruption. It is open and susceptible to waste and fraud. I'm not making this stuff up. You're seeing it. The AppTech contract is a perfect example of it. The Blue Chip contract is a perfect example of it. The Bodito contract that went through the legislature, another perfect example of it. We have history on our side that is proving time and time and again that the Republicans in this legislature and the Republican county executive cannot police themselves. So we need an independent inspector general. If the votes would allow these contracts not to happen, then it would be a different story. But they rubber stamp every single contract that comes through this body. I've never seen them vote no to a contract. If they have a problem with a contract, they table it for 2 weeks and then it comes back to the floor in the next 2 weeks after that.
If both sides hold their position, how long could this go on? We have roads, or sewers, purchases that need to happen with the police. How long could this go on for?
We don't want to see it go longer any time that it doesn't need to. But we will not abandon our position for transparency in this process. That is the most important thing. Taxpayers, yes, they want their roads done. Taxpayers, yes, they want their parks clean. But at the same time, they also want to make sure that money is not being funneled backdoor through political organizations as well. And they want to make sure that their hard-earned taxpayer money is being spent accordingly and properly. And right now, no one in this legislature can say that without an independent source.
But regardless of the merits of that position, they're saying how you're going about doing this and trying to accomplish that is a political stunt, blocking all these projects.
It's not. It's the furthest thing from a political stunt because the two are tied hand in hand. The $275 million, these monies are going to be tied to contracts in the year to come. 90% of the contracts we pass come through funding through this $275 million. They're tied and they're linked because once this money is approved, it allows them to spend well over in excess of $275 million in contracts to procure the services so that we can actually generate the roads and the park projects. So not having that process vetted, I think is a problem for Nassau County taxpayers, and it's doing them a huge disservice because it continues the process, opening the county up to waste, fraud, and abuse, and as the district attorney has also pointed out, makes the process susceptible to corruption.
The Commissioner of Investigations under the county charter has a lot of the same powers that this proposed Inspector General would have. And it wasn't always the case that the Commissioner of Investigations and the county attorney are the same person. So do you see any potential for finding some middle ground with using the position that's already there, but making it a different individual? Is there any compromise there?
Well, the compromise is the independence. Right now, Mr. Foskey in his dual role as Commissioner of Accounts as well as the county attorney is not independent. He works at the pleasure of the county executive. And he may truly believe that in his heart he's independent, but he has not demonstrated that at all. I can't think of the last investigation of any particular contract in the last year, even since we've known about AppTech, and he's been in that role for well over a year. So our middle ground is very simple. And I think it's portrayed now, what we've seen now in regards to some of the commentary that we've heard from taxpayers, is that there is nothing that we can see that is a hindrance to having an independent inspector general. We have an independent budget of legislative review that gives us an independent perspective on the finances of this county. They are not Democrats, they are not Republicans, they are independent. There is no difference in regards to contract procurement when you're talking about spending well in excess of $500-some-odd billion in procurement a year, 275 that comes through the capital plan. To me, from our standpoint, that is what's necessary. The real question is not that the Democrats are obstructing on the capital plan, they're obstructing on transparency and good government. That's their obstruction. They don't want more eyes to watch this process because they know more eyes is going to pull the cover back of what they're doing wrong in this county.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all.
Any more?